Welcome please to the JVG podcast, where these G's are gonna spread their seeds of knowledge about the league. It's flourishing with these. These funny catchers seem to be well read, esteemed and honest. Like the man himself, Jeff and Gundy. They are high IQ, so cerebral and funny. So if you're on the bus, just border on the dunny. Listen to the
JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Hello and welcome to episode 100 of the Jeff Van Gundy NBA Tribute Show. I'm your host Marco, joined as always, of course, by my co-host Lukas.
Hey Marco, how you going?
I'm like, as soon as we started, I got really excited.
Yeah, 100. That's pretty, it's pretty cool. I was thinking about it over the past week and I was like, oh yeah. I wasn't like overstating it or anything. I was like, episode 100 is just like, it's just a thing we do now. Yeah. But we've done this 100 times.
Yeah.
And I feel like we did like the first 30 at Collins, and then we did, since then, a healthy diet of the apartments.
Yeah.
About 15 Zooms, and then some at Arthur.
Yeah.
And I just feel like those like 5 separate settings. Just feel like we've done 5 separate episodes, but it has in fact been 100 separate episodes.
Yeah, it's like I can't distinguish between any of them. They've all blended into one. And it's like I don't think I've done many things 100 times. You know, I think there's probably only like, I don't know, 30 people in the world I've hung out with more than 100 times.
Yeah.
And yeah, we get together every Tuesday night and hang out and record it.
Oh, yeah, and a little peek behind the kimono. We've only really made eating dinner after an episode a thing in the past, like, I want to say 5 weeks. And the first time we did it, we were like, oh, we should have been doing this every single time.
Yeah. I think we went through, when we started, we started at Collins Street and it was sort of like at the tail end of lockdown. I feel like we'd do it earlier. We'd do it like in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it would just be like, you just pop over, you'd pop back. I think when you first moved here, we probably would eat Crocs and Rooster beforehand, and then we'd be like, oh, that was a bad one. We shouldn't have done that. And then I think we just went through a period where it was just like, fuck, I'm just so tired. You know, it's just like, we'll record the pod and then I'll see you on the weekend or whatever. But yeah, like the last 5 weeks, it's like, oh, cool. Yeah. Like I get to record the podcast, which I love doing. I get to hang out with my friend for 3 hours afterwards, which is like, you know, pretty cool actually.
Yeah. Ditto, man. I feel like I wrote a lot more than what I just said, but it's actually not much more than that. But I think just to add to that, it's like, who looks forward to a Tuesday night?
Yeah, 100%.
I know I do.
And I think it's the perfect night to have it on, you know? Like Monday, I mean, you're busy on Mondays, but Monday night, man, you're too wiped. Wednesday, that's when the exciting things start happening.
Oh, yeah.
Things can happen on a Wednesday night.
Yep.
Thursday, practically the weekend. Forget about Friday.
Have we talked about this?
Yeah, for sure. There's 4 days of us talking about shit, so we've surely touched on this before.
Yeah, so Marco reckons our episodes average over an hour. I personally don't know. But if that's the case, we would have done 4 days worth of recording.
Yeah.
Like 4 days straight, which is so long. But have I told you my theory that the weekend starts on Wednesday?
Yeah. I think so. But, you know, relay it for our listeners.
Well, I used to have sleeping issues. I still do from time to time. But I found that Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday nights were really stressful for me. And so if I could just get to Wednesday morning, then I was already looking ahead to the weekend and I could get some rest time.
Nice.
And so then from my, I guess I would call it trauma and pain, a flower has blossomed. And now I play basketball Monday nights and we record the pod Tuesday nights. So I guess I get 7 weekend nights.
Right, I see what you're saying. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are like, you're kind of dreading it.
Yeah.
You know, like you're dreading not having anything to put you to sleep or anything to look forward to. But then the weekend begins on Wednesday.
The weekend begins on Wednesday. It always has. Because Thursday is probably everyone's favorite day of the week without even knowing it. Because it's just like there's so much hope.
Yeah.
And Wednesday is the day before Thursday. So you want to manufacture hope. You start manufacturing it on Wednesday.
Right. Well, see, I feel like I have a differing perspective because, like, man, Tuesday might be the start of my weekend.
Oh my god. Oh, fair.
Because, like, I have Wednesdays off, and I'll often spend like Tuesday nights editing this, but like taking my sweet time with it and playing 2K till way too late. You know, it's like I feel like Tuesday night's like the one night I'm like, fuck it, like I can go to bed at 1 a.m. You know, like I'm not doing too much tomorrow, and then I only have to work 2 more days in the week, and then it's the weekend. Yeah. So yeah, that's like Friday night for me tonight. And then Thursday's not my favorite day. I can tell you that.
Damn.
Yeah.
Is it busy?
Yeah, it's just like you're back to work and you've been gone for a day, and everyone's like, oh, I didn't know how to do this.
Well, hopefully no one from work's listening.
They definitely are. Maybe Ned.
Would you, if you could pick a day to have off, what would it be? Would it be Wednesday?
It's tricky. I feel like it just changes. I'd like to be able to move it around, but I think in blocks. Like you got to have the same day off for like 8 weeks to figure out how to use it.
That's a good point.
There's some weeks like I really want Monday off. In fact, I took Monday off this week because I had a bit of a house party on Saturday night. I needed the extra day to recover and clean. And then some weeks you want Friday off. You want like the full like fun weekend, Friday to Sunday experience.
I think just week in, week out, my weekday off would be Thursday.
Yeah, right.
Gun to my head. Because then I feel like you get Friday feeling on Wednesday and Friday again.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like day off Friday, everyone's kind of doing shit.
Yeah.
On a Friday day, usually work. But, yeah, go on.
Friday's also like the weakest excuse for a work day as well.
Yeah.
Like there's no way anyone in this country is getting work done after 3 p.m. on a Friday. It just stops.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So you don't really want your day off to be then, because then you're kind of getting stinged. You know?
And it's not like this like Australian larrikin laid back culture that work finishes at 3 p.m. on a Friday. It's full on burnout.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's national burnout.
It's like we already shouldn't have been working this 5th day of the week. So like when we get to the 6th hour of the 5th day, notice how I said 6th correctly? That's my growth moment for episode 100. Yeah, it's like I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, beauty. Cool. I found it. I was going to say I completely forgot what I was going to say, which kind of leads me into what I was going to ask. How you feeling after Saturday night? Because I have got a side-splitting headache.
Yeah, man. I'm not at my sharpest. Let's say that.
I was at yours for about, I want to say 3 hours in the backyard, chatting absolute shit, and then something happened. And I just danced for the next 6 hours.
Really?
I was.
We on the day floor for that long.
So long, man. And I was like, not talking to anyone. I was just like, if someone wants to say hi, I'll say hi. Like maybe give them a couple of lines. But I don't think I can talk right now. But I can really dance. I got the energy for that to happen. And yeah, for so long I was like, man, I haven't seen Marco or Ned or Ella for a really long time, or anyone for that matter. And I just kept dancing, and I was like, I'm pretty cool with how everything's going right now.
No, good on you, man. Yeah, it was a good dance floor. Yeah, it was a good party. I had like, I think I was really saved because I was in the absolute dumps on Sunday and not much better on Monday. But I was so saved by just that feeling of when you've had a night where nothing bad happened. And you're like, I had a good time from like start to finish. I was never like, oh, this is boring, or like, oh, this is stressful, or nothing bad happened to anyone except for a little bit of thievery, but we can talk about that later.
Or not at all.
Or not at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, just waking up the next morning and be like, oh, that was just like objectively fun, and everyone had a good time.
Yeah. Oh, it was a fucking pisser. Although I did wake up, like the first thought I think I had was, oh no.
Yeah.
When I woke up on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because my brain and body were tired. I just had this fleeting thought that my parents might be listening. So
yeah.
That's neither here nor there.
Yeah. No, I was exhausted. I don't think we started cleaning until 5. I want to say
PM.
5 p.m. Yeah. Some lovely gentlemen cleaned our backyard for us.
How much did you pay them?
6 hours.
6 hours pay.
They stayed at our house 6 hours longer than they should. Just kidding.
So what's happened in the NBA over the past week?
God.
Not really.
I feel like for episode 100, really wanted to bring it in with our extended universe pals, the members of the 4-Man Weave plus Marco, the 2 hosts of the Deep 2, and of course Alessio Conte. But hey, they just fucked us, I guess. But hopefully we can have them on next week for I feel like it'll be like a free agency trade sort of bonanza. We can do a bit of like season preview and stuff. But before we get to that, thought we might just start with some NBA draft stuff because that's pretty major, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lukas, do you want to just start? Like, who's one of your winners from this year's draft?
I got 3 winners. My first one is the league and the fans.
Damn.
Yeah. I think the top 10 went perfectly. I won't go through all my reasons, but give me a couple names and I'll give you why I think they ended up in the right spot.
Paolo Banchero.
Well, I think he could be the biggest draw of any player in the draft and like the first reason to watch Orlando in 10 years.
Nice. Keegan Murray.
He's in the Kings and we don't have to worry about it. They picked the irrelevant player for us. They did it for the fans.
Nice.
And for the league.
Nice. Well, let's go with Chet Holmgren because,
he can develop in OKC. He is a project. I've been very skeptical, or not skeptical. Just the red flags with Chet, you just can't ignore them.
Yeah.
Like he weighs the same as me. The only issue is he's I think 15 inches taller than me. And I'll pick my last one, Jaden Ivey, and the Pistons, who are another one of my winners of the draft. But now they have Ivy and Cunningham, and they also got Durant. Yeah, and they've just the rebuild is kind of it's ongoing, but they got 3 starters.
Yeah,
and they're gonna just be sick. I'm like really interested in Detroit.
100%. Yeah, I think out of a lot of those, post top 3 players, Ivy and Durant are the ones who I feel like are most likely to fulfill their potential, at least to the point of being starters. Like Ivy's got like a super high ceiling, and like I'm skeptical. There's been chat that he could be the best player in the draft. Come the end of the day, I'm skeptical of that. But I think he's very, very securely a starter.
Yeah.
And Durant is just I think he's the perfect center to draft at that spot in the draft because it's like, all right, it's not DeAndre Ayton. You're not expecting him to be like sort of the fulcrum of your offense or the 3rd highest paid player on your team, and he very well might be going forward with this Pistons team. But you can imagine when they're actually going to compete, they'll bring in a vet or something like that. But yeah, he just does all the center things like rim running, good defender, good offensively, athletic, and then that's it. He does all of the things that you need a sort of modern athletic NBA center to do, and then he just stops there.
Yeah. And it just got me thinking about the Pistons since the year 2000. And they had a contender that ended up winning a ring with Ben Wallace and co. And then they had to retool, and then they had Moose and Drummond for a bit. And then they got Blake Griffin in, and he had an all-star season with the Pistons. And so I just think as an organization, they've kept trying to roll out, or not even kept trying to roll out a contender, but they've kept trying.
Yeah.
And this retool took maybe 3 seasons. And straight up, I think Ivy and Cunningham alone are more talented than that first, not the Bad Boy Pistons, whatever they call them. The Ben Wallace Pistons, they were heart and grit and well coached and D.
Yeah.
It wasn't based on talent.
No.
And then Drummond and Monroe, and then Drummond Blake, and then whoever else they had around them. That wasn't the most talented team.
No.
But yeah, they've just kept rolling out these, or they've kept retooling with some purpose, and it just makes me feel good for them.
Yeah, I feel like, hindsight is 20/20, but it's people were very quick to be down on the Pistons.
Yeah.
When even after they won that ring, how long were they making conference finals for? You know, like
after 04?
Yeah. Like how long were they actual playoff contenders for?
Let me check right now.
Like if it could be a few seasons before Ivy and Durant are like starters on a playoff team. Like if they start every game this year for the Pistons, like congratulations. But it could be a few years before that. But then it's going to be like what 6-7 season absence from the playoffs, which is like not great. But also if you're kind of stuck with like a bad contract like Blake's, a bad contract like Andre Drummond's, and then this is how quickly you get to a position where you're like good from young players that you've drafted and developed. 7 seasons isn't that bad.
Yeah, and also, they after they won the finals, they lost in the finals, and then they made the conference finals the next 3 seasons, and they lost every one of those. But yeah, it's like still very.
You're gonna get a hangover from being that good in like a market like Detroit. Yeah.
But I just feel like if you look at like the big picture, there's just no pressure on them either. Like they do have time to just develop into themselves. And yeah, that makes sense when you got 2 rookies, a second-year player, and then Marvin Bagley, who, he was so heavily critiqued, and a lot of fair reasons as to why. But now he's in a scenario or a situation where he can develop.
Yeah.
With way less pressure than he had on him in Sacramento.
Yeah, like he could be the 6th most talented guy on that roster pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Which isn't a lot of pressure. I don't know if he's gonna pan out. I kind of doubt that. Like for me, there's probably like Cade, the 2 new rookies, and Sadiq Bey are like they're the core that I would really count on being starters for the Pistons in like 3 years. But yeah, you're right. Like that's not. It's like a reclamation project that is fine for the Pistons given where they are.
Yeah, and they can have 3 20-win seasons in a row for the next 3 seasons. Actually, no, that's bad. But like, if these 3 or if these 4 that you just outlined just progress, and then in 4 seasons' time they're a 41-41 team, then that's a success, and that's quite a natural. You're building towards something.
Yeah,
and then that's not even like that doesn't even take into account making trades or
or the draftees that they'll get in that time. Like if they're not good next year, they're probably going to draft another lottery pick, and then it's that's another talented young guy in a good situation.
Yeah. You have any winners?
Well, I had Detroit. I also think my final point on that is the Jeremy Grant trade. I mean, it's such a low sell, but I think maybe his value wasn't quite up where their front office was projecting it, and they knew that, and everyone else knew that. And that, I'm not saying that was the best price on the market for him, but I think that was probably it wasn't going to get much better than that. I mean, it's a useless pick, but if all they really wanted to do was correct the age of their roster and get the cap space, then I think they achieved what they were setting out to do.
Yeah, so top 4 protected pick from the Blazers.
Yeah, but I think it's via the Bucks. So
okay.
So it's useless. I think it'll be in Giannis's 31-year-old season or something like that.
Okay, so that probably pick 30.
Another team I had as winners, I had the Memphis Grizzlies. I really like this idea that I think they're going for, that is just to bring in like high energy, high character looking rookies season after season, blood them in their system, and just keep doing that every year. They finished second in the Western Conference, the best in conference last season, and they made 4 selections in this draft. Like there's 4 players who actually are eligible to sign contracts with the Memphis Grizzlies after that. 2 first rounders. Laravia, he looks interesting. He played like a big point guard in college. you know, he's kind of he's above average at everything. You know, he's like a pretty good shooter. He's a pretty good defender. He's a pretty good playmaker. They just lost D'Anthony Melton in a trade to the Sixers, and like, you know, he can come in and just sort of help replace that defense, help replace that shooting. They're probably going to lose Tyus Jones in the offseason because like someone's going to offer him more money than I think their front office really wants to pay him, and you know, so there's a little bit more playmaking for them. And this David Roddy guy, he's built like Zion Williamson, but like nowhere near as athletic.
Yeah.
But he's just like an absolute sharpshooter. He was shooting like 57% from the field in college. And I just think it'll be really funny watching him and Desmond Bane jacking up threes, like little raptor arms, Desmond Bane, and then there's just fucking like a round mound, just shooting 45% from three. And yeah, I think this is. I think it's a very bold but admirable strategy for a team like Memphis to just like keep drafting first round picks, like borderline lottery picks, and like actually giving them playing time and actually making them good.
Yeah. And I think Jenkins and the team showed that they can just roll out whoever from 6 or let's say 7 through 10 in the rotation, and they'll be successful. Because they have their like starting lineup is really set, and it's a really good and talented and skillful and well drilled and just smart and cohesive lineup. And yeah, he like we saw it with Melton, that Jenkins will just play to an athletic player's strengths, which I mean just seems ridiculous to even say. But I never considered what you just said, but I think that's a good point. I think they probably will do that. Like just keep rolling out these like rookie deal guys. It's like the 3rd, 4th, 5th guys off the bench.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know, I think let's say you know another all-star they really want becomes available in the next season or two. You have, you know, you don't just have picks to throw at the other team. You have players who you're making look better because you know young players are looking better when they're in Memphis. I'm sure if we had drafted Zion Williams last season, like he wouldn't have looked as you know as capable as he did in Memphis. So yeah, I think that it's like smart, like sticking with assets, but also not sacrificing on court ability. Yeah.
Well, funny you bring up the Grizzlies because I think the 76ers are also a winner.
Yeah.
In that D'Anthony Melton trade.
100%.
I just think Melton the 76ers really needed a mid-tier player because they have their top tier and then they have their bottom tier. And there is just no like gradient in between them. And I think Melton is just that. He's perfect. Maxey, Harden, Harris, Embiid. That's obviously going to be they're going to be 4 of the players in their closing 5. And they desperately needed that 5th player. And that's D'Anthony Melton.
Yeah.
And, you know, replacing Danny Green. Oh, my God. Is that Ned?
I think so.
Yet again, interrupting the podcast.
That might be the first Bell interruption, actually.
Potentially. That, but it's not the first Ned interruption.
No.
It's maybe like 6,
7, 8.
Going on 100. I definitely lost my train of D'Anthony Melton. Yeah, I mean, you take. I mean, I've started making this point, so I'll finish it. You play D'Anthony Melton over Danny Green. Like every team takes that right now.
Yeah.
And then the cost of the 23rd pick is just. You're trying to win next with Embiid right now. It's not really a cost. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, he's just a perfect fit there. I like that point you make about having no mid-tier players because you think about, if you sit those 4 guys, like who's on the floor?
Yeah.
What is it, like Reed?
Mike Scott, potentially. He's probably there.
Fucking Cockmuz. It's not pretty at all.
You have any other winners?
Do you have any others? Sorry, I feel like I took the last 2.
No, I just did that one. The 76. Hey, Ned, what's up? It's okay. Just come across the screen. Everyone already heard the bell.
We'll put a marker down. I mean, we touched on it, but I think I think the Thunder are another winner for me. I feel like the last few seasons, the tank has been real, and they haven't been able to get like that top 3 pick that they want. And I think that they got the top 3 just at the perfect time when the most Thunder-looking player is on the board. I think Chet, like, however he pans out, whatever his weaknesses are, this is exactly the player that the Thunder were looking for. I don't mean just in like the Poku similarities or anything like that. I think they like, they like a project. It's honestly the perfectly environment for someone who has a lot of like ifs and buts.
Yeah.
Even if you want to go all the way back to Kevin Durant, like that guy had question marks over his head, which is so stupid in retrospect.
Yeah.
Same deal. He's like this like ball handling 6'11" twig. And yeah, they turned him into the second best player of his generation, or the third best player of his generation, however you want to look at it. And yeah, I mean, he probably had that ability in him all along, but that was like the right environment for him. So I hope that this is the draft, this is the pick that sort of tips them from this, shutting down young players, being really, really bad into like, all right, let's actually start to build a team that can win basketball games.
Yeah. I always think back to when Aless made the point that he was like, the Kings made a win-now move to get Sabonis, and going into next season, he listed all the players in the West, or all the teams in the West that are already better than the Kings. And then he listed the Thunder, and we were all like, oh, come on, Aless. But he was like, no, if they decide to be good, then they'll be good. And he's right. Like, if they're like, what, if they see half a season of Giddey, Shea, Chet, I'm probably missing a couple of other players. But like having success and really showing like flashes of potential greatness, like just like missing a superstar, then they can absolutely get a superstar.
Yeah.
They've gotten so many superstars throughout their time. Actually, they've gotten Paul George. I think that's it. they've developed quite a lot though. But yeah, I think that drafting Chet, there's no if it works out. It's worked out.
Yeah.
If Chet goes wrong, he was going to go wrong somewhere.
Yeah.
It's better at this team that's going to be, having a top 5 pick in the next 3 years. If Chet works out, then what? They get a 10th pick, and then that turns into a 15th pick the season after that, and maybe they sign a superstar.
Yeah. I think it'll just be like the waiting game of like, okay, at what point in like the next 3 seasons is it ready to just like put the foot on the accelerator? And yeah, there's no, I mean, obviously there's pressing things like your players getting older, your players wanting to win, but there's no asset ticking time bomb on this team. Like they can just choose when to like opt in or out of being a good team at any time that they want.
Yeah.
Also, they drafted 2 guys called Jalen Williams. So that's a W in my column.
Yeah. Very well put. I don't have any more winners, but I do have 2 losers. Do you have any more winners?
Like the 905 Raptors getting Ron Harper Jr.
Now we're talking. Well, actually, we haven't even. I don't think we've plugged our article.
No, we haven't.
So, I mean, the draft happens now, but the 4-man week plus marker on thedeep2.com, which you can find at thedeep2.com. We wrote a draft preview for 1 player each, and you're probably going to like, oh fuck, a draft preview. What am I going to read? I'm going to read an article about some top 5 pick, and then maybe a couple of other lottery picks. Maybe a guy in the high teens. I'm probably not going to get an undrafted or a second-round player preview. That's where you're wrong. If you
which was it the former or the latter?
It was the latter. It was an undrafted player who's now signed a 2-way contract with the Raptors 905 and the Toronto Raptors. And I'm talking, of course, about none other than Ron Harper Jr. When I wrote my preview, I just looked for whoever has the most ridiculous body, and then I saw that there were 2. It was David Roddy and Ron Harper Jr. And I was like, it's got to be Ron Harper Jr. Famously the son of Ron Harper.
Ron Harper Sr. even.
Yes. So you brought up the Raptors 905, who Ron Harper Jr. ended up at.
Yeah. And that was the gag. Yeah.
And now this is the end of the plug and the start of the losers. I took first last time, so why don't you go first?
Well, I've got the Charlotte Hornets. Look, I'm sure. So yeah, the Hornets. We both I think got excited in the group chat at the same time that they had drafted Jalen Durant.
Another player in that article
with the was it the 13th pick? 13th pick, and then he was immediately traded in the most confusing trade of all time. Ended up with the Detroit Pistons, who we've just spoken about, and then 2 picks later they drafted Mark Williams. Now, I'm sure Mark Williams is great. Like, by all accounts, he's like the most versatile defensive big man in the draft. Like, he can defend in the paint, he can defend in the perimeter. He's a footer, and that's what they needed. But he just does not feel like the right pick. Durant feels like, the athletic guy you need next to LaMelo Ball. And if Mark Williams was the player that they preferred, I think they're wrong. I think that's the wrong selection. If they did it for other reasons, if they're like, oh, we can get a little bit of value and we can get just like a slightly worse center, I think that's wrong as well, because they got 4 second-round picks.
Yeah.
Which, how much use are they going to be for a team that like has LaMelo Ball on it and wants to be making the playoffs and contending in the next few seasons? So I just don't really, and I Mark Williams, I think his downfall is his offensive game. It is that he's not very mobile. It is that he's not going to be just like leaping up to snatch lobs and throw them down. So I just don't really understand why you wouldn't draft the guy who is the center you've been looking for 2 years.
As soon as the pick happened, I could imagine Durant in a Hornets jersey.
Yeah.
And I could imagine him like getting hype on the bench and like catching and finishing lobs. I also have the Hornets, and I think it's more like, this was obviously a bad idea, but I think more just like the last week or 2 needs to be held to account, and now's as good a time as ever. Like they had Kenny Atkinson, then they didn't as coach. Miles Bridges didn't get offered a max extension.
No.
Or he didn't get offered what he wanted from the Hornets. He also posted a photo of lean and a joint. Then Montrez gets found guilty of possession, gets arrested.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just a lot of dysfunction happening all at the same time, and it feels really weird because this last season, the Hornets really looked like they were taking shape as this like professional organization after being just a laughingstock for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know what has gone into this. I'm sure it's something or a few things, but yeah, just all this dysfunction happening right before the off season, where you're like building your roster into the next season, it's really bad timing.
Yeah. Yeah. And now they've re-signed Steve Clifford as head coach, which is just like, you had the 2 obvious picks there as well. You had Kenny Atkinson. Okay, that didn't work out. You had Mike D'Antoni. You had Jalen Durant. Like, you had all these players that just were sort of like universally accepted. You had this player and you had this coach that were universally accepted to be like the right fit for you at the right time, and you turned them both down.
Clifford signing as the head coach is like really bad.
Yeah.
like I think that probably set everything off. That was definitely the biggest red flag I feel. Or that was probably the biggest like something's up. That was probably the thing that confirmed like something's up. Like, you could have had D'Antoni, you could have had Atkinson. Atkinson is a bit more like he himself decided to stay in a winning situation. But yeah, then all the other bad stuff, and I think the fact they come out of this with Clifford, without Bridges, without Durant, like it's just such a slide in just like 2 weeks.
Definitely, 100%. Got any other losers?
Yeah, I got one more, and it's Stephen A. Smith's New York Knicks.
Me too.
They traded a lottery pick in Usman
Dieng.
For 3 lottery protected picks.
The 3 most useless picks of all time. You can look it up.
I'm not a doctor, but that doesn't sound healthy. You get rid of the lottery pick for 3 definitely not lottery picks. Like, and you need players now. You need bodies right now. Yeah, I think they didn't draft anyone, did they?
No, nobody. Not a single new player.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, I think so much has to change at New York. Like, I think so much has to change because I don't know who the good players on this team are meant to be. I don't know which players are meant to get better. Like, I don't know which player is meant to be the best player on the Knicks in 3 years. Like, is it RJ Barrett? Okay, is he gonna be that good? Like, I'm not hating on him. I just don't think that's like the cornerstone of your franchise. Is it Emmanuel Quickly? Well, then okay, you should probably play him more. I really just think they need to get rid of Tibbs ASAP because I think, you know, even if they sign Brunson, if they get Brunson in free agency, which I think is looking less and less likely, I think it's looking more and more like he's just trying to gas up the Mavs. Then even if they get him, there's just so little around him to actually be a good team. You have so little assets to like build a good team. And then also you have a coach that just won't play young players and won't develop young players. Because if you're in this situation where you're a bad team, and even if the only player you draft is in like the mid-second round, then that's a player who can at least get a little bit better. You know, that's someone who can contribute to your kind of shit team. That's someone who can maybe turn into like more than the asset of a second round pick. But that's just not going to happen in New York while Tom Thibodeau is coach.
Yeah. So you touched on it. We were wrong. They did get a player.
Shit.
Trevor Keels. No, you said a mid-second round pick.
I did.
Yeah. Trevor Keels with pick 42. Now, bit scary that he was born in the year 2003. That doesn't sit well with me. But a 6'3", 224-pound guard might actually get minutes on a team.
Yeah, wow.
If the game's not too fast for him. But I think the fact that he's actually a teenager, means he probably won't play for Tibbs.
Yeah.
No matter how good he could be, Michael Jordan. I don't think Tibbs would play him. I just don't know what the direction is now because. But you're not going to get anything in free agency because you fucking stink. And, like, you've just never splashed out in free agency. And now you don't have any rookies coming to your team. And I'm not sure how else you get players.
Yeah.
And you need to improve that. Well as just, management and coaching. Which is, I think, everything.
Yeah. The only two things that could happen to New York, and I don't think either of them are going to happen, is Kyrie Irving, who we'll talk about later. Somehow there is a trade for him. Somehow Brooklyn accepts the biggest caca poo-poo plate of salary and assets to send Kyrie to New York. But then it's like you've got Kyrie Irving, and we know that isn't a player you can build your franchise around anymore. He's just too unreliable. He would be far and away the best player for the Knicks in about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
The other thing is, there's this slim chance we've cleared this cap space for Jalen Brunson. But Brunson isn't going to win you games by himself. He's a great, I think he'd make a really good point of attack. Like, he'd be the really good first option to build your team around. Whether or not he actually ends up being good enough to be the first option on a team that makes the second round of the playoffs, that's the jury's out on that. But I can see him running the offense himself. But who's he running it for?
Yeah.
There's no one on this team that he's running the offense for.
Yeah. Any other losers?
I just put the LA Lakers because fucking suck a dick.
Very nice.
Yeah, no, sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say, how do you feel about the Pelicans?
I'm really happy. Yeah, I think the Dyson Daniels pick is great. It's obviously so good to have, that he's Australian. So good that he actually has an Aussie accent as well. I think it just adds a little bit more playmaking. He's a really good defender. And honestly, the bad shooting is just not that much of a concern for me. We have the best 3-point coaching staff in the league. And it's players like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Devontae Graham that you have to worry about being bad 3-point shooters because they jack them up. But like Lonzo Ball, not a good 3-point shooter. Not jacking him up. when he wasn't a good shooter. And I think Daniels will be the same. He's not going to be taking 8 threes a game or anything like that. And so if he can just turn into like a 36-37% on 3 attempts a game, like I think that will be enough. That will be the most that'll be enough to expect from him.
Yeah, and he can make an instant impact just with like energy and defensively. And he also has so much time to develop into a good or a passable 3-point shooter. I think whoever got drafted to the Pelicans would be getting drafted into a perfect situation because you guys already have a good rotation, and next season you're going to add Zion to that.
Yeah.
And the minutes are going to come from players that are in the rotation already. So, yeah, like Daniels has heaps of time now to develop into a player. And then you're happy to run with Trey Murphy and Herb Jones as your wings. And then if you can add Daniels to that, either, if that does happen in his first season or in his second season, you guys look really good. And all the David Griffin hate is... I mean, I don't feel happy for David Griffin because he's a weird guy, but like it's kind of I kind of feel good for just the Pelicans.
Yeah, we can throw out such a fun like semi-second unit lineup of like Murphy, Jones, Daniels, Larry Nance, and then like one of CJ and Brandon Ingram, and it's just like, all right, CJ, Brandon, do your thing, and they'll just be 4 like wing-sized good defenders to back you up there who can all probably hit a 3-point shot as well.
It's such like a fan favorite bench unit.
Hundy. How are you feeling about the Wizards?
I feel good. So pick 10, we picked Johnny Davis, and he has a few like question marks about his game, but he makes shit happen, and we've really needed that outside of our like best players. Like Wall did it, Westbrook did it, Beal's been doing it. But similar to like DeAnthony Melton in Philadelphia now, having some like creation from our mid-tier players is, I think, just adds something that we've been missing for like seriously like 10 years.
Yeah.
And he's got a really cool game. He's got like a Sean Livingston-ish post game. He's a really good defender. He's a pretty average 3-point shooter, but I'm not too worried about that. I just feel like he's a bit like stubborn in a good way. Like he wants to just like he would just force wins to happen, and he would just like not stop. Like he would like attack the glass if his team needed it in college, and he would just like make winning plays and shit. And I just think that that's something that we've missed. But this other guy, Yannick Sosa, who we picked with pick 54, he's 18 years old. He's 7 feet tall. I think he started playing basketball 4 years ago, and he is just like the project of all projects.
Yeah.
And I watched 2 scouting videos on him. One of them was made like maybe a month ago, and the other one was made 6 months before that. And the one 6 months before, I was like, who would pick this guy? And then I watched the one from 6 months after, and I was like, holy shit, he made that much of a jump in 6 months. Like, he moves around the court. He could move around the court better than anyone else on the Wizards already.
Yeah, right.
And he's 7 feet tall.
Wow.
But he's also like rakishly thin, like Chet Holmgren tier. And I'm really excited to have like a full-on project on the team.
Yeah.
And I hope we just retain him and like put hours into him and like hours into his body and into his game.
Yeah. No. Yeah, you can. I think you're in the position where you have like a roster spot for a player like that. Yeah. It's like, okay, maybe he's not actually getting minutes, but develop him. like genuinely just keep him in your back pocket to develop. Yeah.
Well, should we stick with people that made shit happen for the Washington Wizards?
Hey, very nice.
John Wall.
So it came out today that John Wall and the Rockets have agreed to a buyout. He's going to give back $6.5 million of his $47.4 million he's due this year, which I think it's about the mid-level, the taxpayer mid-level. And he's planning to sign with the Los Angeles Clippers once he clears. And I think I don't have this confirmed, but I think it'll be about for the mid-level as well, not for the vet min. Yeah. What do you think about this?
I think it's really good for the Clippers. And I think if Reggie Jackson and John Wall can figure out what the point guard is like position is going to look like for the Clippers, they can figure it out. If they can figure it out, it would look great because you have this like really good scorer in Reggie Jackson and then this really good playmaker in John Wall, and they would also complement each other's games really well if they did share the court together. And I just think that John Wall is going to do well. The last time he was healthy, which is a really long time ago now, but he was averaging 23 and 9, and he was in the MVP discussion. And let's say that player scales down 70%. I think that's still good enough to play point guard for 20 to 24 minutes in the NBA, but like 20 to 24 really good minutes.
Yeah. I think that's the question mark for me is like what will the Clippers be expecting from him? Which is, I think what he expects is to be like a 30-minute a night guy. I'm not sure. Maybe that will change very quickly once he actually signs with LA, once he's not getting paid $47.4 million. Because I do think that like just the amount of time he hasn't played, and he was so good in he played like 40 games for the Rockets, and he was great in them. Like he didn't make that team better, but he was playing really well in them. But I do think spending that much time on the bench, it's just going to have affected him so much. But I think you're right. I think like he doesn't need to. His output doesn't need to be even 50% of what it was when he was last healthy for the Wizards, for example. But yeah, what do you imagine his like actual role is? Is it coming off the bench? Like,
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. He's not there anymore. But if DeMarcus Cousins, if the Clippers could find a way to get DeMarcus Cousins, then I feel like you could have a bench unit of Wall and Cousins, and I think that would be really good. And I would think it would, because they've always wanted to play together. Since they left college, they were like, we want to find a way to play together by the end of our careers. And I think that they could be a really good bench unit together. Especially guys that have been superstars. I feel like there's something in that as well. Like there would still be this like thing about them, like playing against them, and like, damn, this guy did used to just like drop 40 whenever in DeMarcus Cousins, and there's like John Wall did just like fucking blitz the league for a few seasons there. And I just think that Jackson already has really good chemistry with, or maybe just a good chemistry with Kawhi and PG, and I think they can kind of be two separate entities.
Yeah. I think it'll be really fun. I think the closing unit of this side could be so much fun because you could have Wall and Reggie on, and then Kawhi and PG, and then you can throw Covington in at the 5 there. You can move Kawhi up to the 5 and throw Powell on as well. You're just gonna have so much shooting and so much like perimeter defending. This is the small ball sort of wet dream. And just like guys who can hit a shot, and then John Wall who can just sort of like drill a hole through the D and just open everything up. The only thing is, I think, can they all stay healthy? I think that's just like the biggest question mark. There's now probably 4 of the league's 20 most injury prone players on this roster. Including three who probably how many games did Paul George play last year? 3 who played a combined 20 games between each other.
Damn. I got that wrong before, by the way, about John Wall's MVP season. It wasn't 23 and 9. It was 23 and 11, which is
23 and 11.
Quite a few more assists.
My fuck.
And he had a 3-season stretch with the Wizards from 2014-15 to 2016-17, where he played nearly every game, and he averaged 20-10, 2 steals, and pretty okay efficiency.
Any player who averages more than 9 assists is so impressive to me. Getting almost 10 assists every game. It's more impressive than getting 16 rebounds a game for me.
Oh my god! Oh, there's the hard double and the easy double. Boards is the easy one. Assists is the hard one. I think 8 is the number for me.
Yeah.
If you can get 2 assists a quarter on average,
Yeah.
I think that's really impressive.
Yeah. You're creating 2 scores just completely outside of your own.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we're both kind of hot on the Wall side of the Clippers.
Yeah. No.
You less so.
I just think he's going to get injured.
Okay.
Quite early on, I just don't think his conditioning is going to be up to it. If it works, it'll be great. But I just think if they're expecting too much of him, it's not going to work. And if any of the 4 of them get injured, I think it doesn't hold up very well. I mean, they've still got a great roster. I think they're much more prepared for the loss of one of their superstars this season, which is crazy to say, because I think you should go into any season being like, all of our players are going to be healthy. That's the only way we're going to win a championship. But I think the moves they made at the deadline at the end of last season and this it gives them more insurance than they had when Kawhi went down at the end of the season before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, should we touch on the Kyrie stuff and then take Ned to Lam?
Yeah, let's do that.
He's getting pretty restless.
So after fucking around for a couple of weeks, Kyrie he's opted into his $37 million player option with the Brooklyn Nets. I think when it became apparent that it's kind of impossible to make a sign and trade with someone who wants $45 million, and also no teams actually wanted him outside of the only team that was showing significant interest at the end of the day was the Los Angeles Lakers, who. Well, there was no sign and trade in the world that Brooklyn would have agreed to, and I think there was no chance in the world that Kyrie Irving took the mid-level exception as well. So yeah, what do you think this season is going to look like for Kyrie?
That saying, actions speak louder than words. Mm-hmm. I heard a commentator say, a different rendition of that, which I prefer. Your actions are so loud I couldn't hear your words. Kyrie has found a way to make his words louder than his actions.
Yeah.
And I just think that is really impressive by him. Because it's like, I mean, how much noise did he make over the past week?
So much.
And then he was like, what did he say today about I'm one of one, I'm going to make my own way, I'm going to do something no one's ever done before. And he just opted in.
Yeah.
He just accepted $36 million. Oh, no, I never would have thought of anyone who would have done that.
What did you see his reply to the Shams tweet confirming it?
No, what was
it? Normal people keep the world going, but those who dare to be different lead us into tomorrow. I've made my decision to opt in. See you in the fall.
Man, he's got to be a troll. He's got to be like a Donald Trump level comedic genius.
It's like this. I think he thinks he's always controlling the narrative, just because he says things. He's like, oh, there. Well, that's it. I'm controlling the narrative there, and that's what you mean is that his words speak louder than his actions.
Yeah.
Nothing he's done has. There's been no evidence that anyone has been going to end up with Kyrie Irving on their roster. At least in this stage of the off season than the Brooklyn Nets. There was no viable option where that's not what happens. He was going to pick up his player option, or they weren't going to offer him the max. Those were the 2 options. So yeah, the fact that he's just caused such a hoopla about it. I mean, yeah, it's classic him, isn't it? He
only turned 30 this year. It just feels like he could have made so much more of his career than he has. Just on court.
100%. I mean, yeah, he's won a championship. I think you win one championship, and that's, you don't really have to do much else.
Yeah.
But the level of skill that he has, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if he actually doesn't play even 3/4 of the season for the Brooklyn Nets this year, then it's kind of like that whole project was a waste of time,
I just got the Fox Sports headline.
Here we go.
Kyrie Irving makes huge $53 million call as NBA drama takes fresh twist. Fuck.
The 53 million. That's it's so low for them.
Really? Wait. News.com.au. NBA saga is over after $44 million bluff called. ESPN. Kyrie Irving says he's opting into $36.5 million option with the Brooklyn Nets. Now,
There's a lot of different numbers being thrown around here, aren't there?
I assume the Fox Sports one is AUD.
Yeah, it always is.
What's the $44 million one? Canadian?
Well, would that be maybe that would be the max that he could get?
In
That's
USD?
that's what he wanted to get. That's what he wanted to opt out of and then get offered. And Brooklyn was like, "No, we're not doing that."
There you go. We just worked through it.
Yeah.
Fucking live.
Very
on here.
nice.
And by we, I mean you.
Do you think there's any team that Kyrie could end up on and make them better this season?
Yeah, all of them. But
But realistically,
yeah. But I think probably the Nets and the Lakers. I think those would be the two teams where he can go. I think it has to be a big market. I think that if we're talking realistically, I think it has to be a big market.
Yeah, look where he went after Cleveland, Boston, and New York.
Yeah, I think it would have to be a big market, and like he's obviously talented enough to do it.
Yeah.
He just has to do it.
Yeah, and I guess there's still going to be questions about how Kevin Durant's feeling. I mean, if Kyrie walked, then he was probably going to request a trade.
Yeah.
Where do you think KD could end up?
Well,
if that came to blows.
He still wants to go as well, doesn't he? Or there's like there's whispers.
Yeah, I think we're at that point where it's like, all right, Kyrie's opted in, and KD hasn't really signaled his intentions in light of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. KD, come on home. Come on to Maryland. Back to the DMV. There's only one place for you to end your career, and it is the Washington Wizards.
I just think the Brooklyn Nets, like, a core of like Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, maybe like, I don't know. Yeah, Trey Murphy's pretty good as well. Yeah, I just think that would be a pretty attractive proposition for them.
I would give up Beal, Porzingis, and Rui and Denny.
Yeah,
and all of the picks. If I could get just KD, it would actually be better.
Do you think
if we could roll out Kuz, KD, Gaff in the front line, Johnny Davis and Corey Kispert in the back line, I am watching every single game.
Do you think you make the playoffs?
Oh yeah,
Do you make the conference finals if KD stays healthy the whole season?
I think there's a fat chance. There's a slight chance we win the first round, but we'd make the playoffs.
Yeah. God, that would be completely chaotic.
It'd be something.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we both had serious suggestions for that. Hey man, put it there.
Yeah. Spit back to something.
Oh no, the camera's on.
Maybe.
Yeah. So that wraps up episode 100 of the JVG NBA Tribute Show.
And if you've made it this far, we didn't say this, but this is going to be our last ever episode.
Yeah. So thanks for the memories. You can rewind back to episode 1 and
see you next week.
We'll see you next week.